This is the second lecture for Chapter 9, Molecular Geometry. And we're just kind of continuing off where we were in the last one. Excuse me. That for attachments, regardless of what's on the end of that attachment, is considered tetrahedral. And then you can break it down for each one of these in regards to lone pairs or unbonded electrons. So just, of course, you have to memorize the names on there. This one here I'm not going to worry about too much. You can just take a look and say, okay, something that's axial is just kind of this up and down. Again, I don't really see this going anywhere. If you had, for example, this one being trigonal bipyramidal is the electron domain geometry. But based upon what happens to be there, for example, having one unbonded pair of electrons, that's going to take up more space, and it's going to really, if you want to consider this a plane, and you have a left side of the plane and a right side of the plane, the left side of the plane is going to be covered mostly by that lone pair of electrons, shoving the other bonded pairs over to the other side. Two of them are in that axial position, but the shape of this one is going to be considered what's called seesaw, as you can see. And this is the one we just saw there, that seesaw. And then the other ones you have there as well. Again, being trigonal bipyramidal. And this one's a little weird. Those two, or I should say the seesaw and the T-shape, are probably the trickiest ones to memorize. But again, these guys have more space. The non-bonded pair have more space, so they need more space. So they're going to repel the others further away. So if you want to consider this a plane, the two non-bondeds will take up more space than the two, or three I should say, three bonded pairs. All right, keep moving along here. Octahedral. We're not going to have a lot of options on that one, but they're pretty easy to remember because squares in both of the other names. If you happen to have 6 attachments, it's octahedral. If you happen to have one non-bonded pair, then it's square pyramidal, as you can see, and then square planar. Okay? Easy enough. Moving along. So we mentioned this earlier on, is having a larger molecule. You just have to decide what you want to consider what the conversation is about. So for example, this one here, I have oxygen as a central atom. So that one is giving a bent shape because I'm going to consider this as oxygen. And it has 2 lone pairs, which is going to give us the bent shape. If you want to talk about this one here, that one has 3 locations. So I'm going to change what I was saying earlier, is it's trigonal planar in regards to having 3 locations. And also for its shape, it's going to be trigonal planar because it has just 3 bonded pairs and no non-bondings. And then this one over here, I have 4 attachments, so tetrahedral, and they all are bonded to something. So it is, again, tetrahedral. Okay? Now, polarity, based upon whatever shape you have and the negative positive nature of that molecule is going to determine if the molecule is polar or not polar. This one here, I definitely have a positive side and I have a negative side, 2 of them. But because they're symmetrical and there's not really a positive side versus a negative side, this one does not have polarity. And we'll see some variations of that the next couple slides. So this one here, water, is an excellent example. It looks just like this one here, except now we have this bent shape. This one has a definite negative side and a definite positive side, so that's going to make it polar. Easy enough. And here's some more examples there, and it tells you which ones are polar and which ones are not, so you can take a look at those. Alright, so for the hybrid orbitals, this one does a decent job. Beryllium, if you take a look as far as the S's, we see that the 2s is completely filled, so no bonding necessary. But we know that it does bond, so something else must be going on. And what we see, I'm trying to pull that slide up, is that it's not over here, so I'm just going to find it. I'm going to skip this. We'll come back to beryllium in a second. Apparently that slide is not there. Looking at this one here, there is kind of a sweet spot in regards to how close these hydrogens are located to each other, and it has to do with the potential energy. So you have two things going on. You have electrons being attracted to the positive nucleus of protons, but then you also have repulsion between protons and electrons. So eventually you find what I called a sweet spot, which gives you your lowest potential energy, and that's where the distance between the two nuclei remains. So that gives us our atomic radius between the atoms. And again, is the reason why it kind of goes up here is if I get closer to further and further away from each other, infinity for these two atoms, you end up with no attraction, both either positive for or negative against. Okay? Moving over to, back to beryllium, I guess, I don't know why this slide's over here, is beryllium doesn't have bonding based on this arrangement. But if I split them, having one electron in the 2s and one in the 2p, now it's available for bonding. So you end up with this scenario where beryllium can potentially bond to two other atoms. So what you end up having is you have your S, which is available, and you have your P, which is available, and they come together and make what's called a hybrid orbital. So this one is called SP because I'm using one of my S's and one of my P's to make up this new set of orbitals. Okay? And we'll see a bunch of other of these as we move along. So here's what I was trying to get to earlier, the picture of beryllium fluoride, having those hybrid orbitals that allows it to do its bonding. Okay? Moving over to beryllium, kind of looking like that. So again, it has that potential. I won't spend a lot of time here. So if we're at sp2, in this case, again, we have one S and two of the P's, doesn't matter which ones. You blend those together and you get three mixed or hybrid orbitals that allows it to have equal energy between these three. And because there's three of them, one S and two P's, it's sp2. Nice and easy. Just recall or know that there's still one other p orbital which isn't in this blending. So that one's still hanging out there, which we're going to see what's going on with that in a little bit. Same idea with this one, sp3. You have the 1s and the 3 p's coming together to give us four mixed or hybrid orbitals, all of equal energy. Okay, so this theory. So when these guys are hybridizing, you can end up having this overlapping because, again, we have some of these electrons, more so on this side, electrons which are not involved in that head-to-head bonding, but they're still there. So sometimes when you have these double bonds, this is what's actually going on behind the scenes, which we haven't really ever covered up until now. So just to point out, you have two different types of bondings. You always, if you have a bond, you always have a sigma bond. And the sigma bond is just head-to-head bonding, is what we're typically used to. But if you happen to have a double bond in place, that double bond, that second bond, is actually what is called a pi bond. So nice and easy. You know, pi bonds is the extra double bonds in there. And that is the connection between these electrons, say on top. They are attracted to this nucleus, and again, there's two electrons in this orbital. So they're attracted over here, and these electrons are attracted over here. So they're kind of falling over in that attraction. So again, here we are with this setup here. One sigma bond, you always have one sigma bond, so it's in all three of them. And based upon the number of bonds, if I have a double bond, one of them's a pi, and if I have a triple bond, two of them are pi's. And we'll see some pretty ugly drawings here in a second. So this is a really good excuse me, a depiction of what this looks like. Is again, this carbon here has three bonded pairs. One over here to oxygen, and one going to hydrogen there, and one going to hydrogen over here. So there's three bondings taking place. So it's sp2. which means there's a third P which is not involved. And here it is up here. I'll just kind of outline it out. So that's that non-bonded pair, which is kind of also attracted over to oxygen. And that's why you get this falling over. And oxygen's got the exact same thing happening. So I'm really messing this up. You can see how these guys are attracted over. So that's why you get this messy shape. All right, good place to stop. We'll have one more lecture after this, and we'll call it good.